Hi, good morning. So in this class, we are going to learn about context API. And what is context API? With context API, you'll be able to manage global states. So state management is not just managing things within a component. Okay, so with state management, you can actually manage things within a component, and you'll be able to manage states using a component using hooks. Okay, so we have seen hooks like use state, use effect. You can use it to trigger things like on-click functions, okay, like hamburger icons, search menu, and all those on change, on mouse over effects, okay, those things happen within a component. But when you move from that component to another component, it changes states, okay? So it becomes kind of stateless. So that state doesn't exist anymore. So how are we able to manage state across our components, okay? So to do that, we will use a context API. There are so many other ways you can do that. You can also use something like Redux Store, what is called Redux Toolkit, to manage that, okay? So, but with context API, we'll be able to manage that effectively using context API. Okay, so put you through here how you are going to do that. So a quick look at what context API can do for us. So I have this little application here, which here you can see cats having a value of 0. So I have this default value here. When I click on it, you can see that cat has increased by 1. If I also click here, I will see that cat has also increased by 2. If I add 2 more of these or 3 of these, cat will be 5. When I click on add, it becomes 5. If I add 1 more of this CSS here, and I add, it will become 2 more, it will become 7. And if I click on my cat, I'll be able to see all the things that I have added here effectively. So can close cards here. So this actually remains stateless in that we can move across. I can move to home and my card will still be there. I can also click on login or some of all these things. Those pages don't exist here, and I'll be able to have them, be able to see them. So if I come back here, I can delete, okay, I can delete, and I will have my cards being empty when I delete it. So you can see it is now empty. And when I come back here, I can close this card now. So I made it to be that position. I'll be able to see that if I add 1 more, I will have it there. Okay. I'll be able to have that. So okay. If I go back, I will see the total number here. And then can also delete. So we can actually store this using local storage. So I'll put us through how we'll be able to get that. All right. Let's start off. Okay, so welcome back. I had to pause in order to create this document here. And then what I want to do, or what we want to achieve, is we want a situation where we can click on this, and as this thing has 5 here, it will update this card, just like I've shown us before. So let's go straight to the components and put us through what we need to do. Okay, so the first thing we need to do for context API, I think I need to give us a background information about how React Context API actually works, okay? It's a global state management, as I have actually said, how you can manage your state globally. Okay. So if you read up these documents, it will kind of guide you on what you need to do, especially working with React Context API in React, okay? It will kind of tell you what you need to do. So first thing we need to do is to create our providers, okay? We need to create an app called providers. And so these providers, we are going to use it to import some components like create context and use context and providers. we're going to use it to manage everything that we want to happen on a global state. So I will create an app on my road called providers.jss. So it doesn't actually matter the person, you can just call it providers.jss. So this providers.jss, we have, let's use an arrow function to do that. So I'm going to use arrow a. So export it like this very arrow function. I'm going to use that to create providers.jss. So after we have done that, next thing is I can create a variable called sidebar create context. Okay, so I'll use const sidebar create context, sidebar sidebar context. Let me just call it sidebar context. Okay, and my sidebar context is going to call create context. So I'm going to equate it to create context, and create context is coming from React, so it's going to take create context. Okay, so yeah, so I have sidebar create context, and I'm going to have it as create context. All right. This thing is so slow. So let me just make this into the capital letter. So I will name this guy, I will call it sidebar provider. Sidebar provider. So I have this as my provider, I have my provider as sidebar context. So there are two things I'm exporting here. Therefore, I'm going to use arrow function here. So what am I exporting? I'm exporting sidebar context, and I'm also exporting sidebar provider. Okay, so the two basic things that we'll be exporting here. All right, so I'm going to allow this to accept children, because it's going to have all my children. I'm going to wrap everything around it, so to accept all the children. Because I'm having multiple things that I'm going to be giving out here, I'm not going to export this as a default. I will actually leave it like that, so I'm not exporting it as a default. Okay, so inside here, I'm going to declare my hook. Okay, so I'll declare my hook here. After here, I'm going to declare my hook. Can say const, can call it anything, can say var, my hook is var, and I will say set var. So hook is var, set var is equal to use states, and I'll import use state from React, and then I'm going to give it an initial value of 0. Okay, so declare var, set var, and then give it an initial value of 0. So because this is now going to be hook, so I will make sure that I say use client here, because I'm using a side application. So I must make sure that I define it as a use client. So what I'm going to be giving out here, instead of providers, will now be the children. Okay, I will turn those children here. So, but these children, I'm going to wrap it around sidebar context. So I have, I'm going to wrap it around sidebar context. Okay, so the children will be inside the sidebar context, so we'll move it there. So sidebar context dot provider. So just with sidebar context dot provider. And then I have a value. So I'll give it a value key. And what are the different values that I'm going to give it? I want it to take var and also set var. So I'm giving it out take var and set var. This is var, not car. Okay. So for now, those are just the only contexts that I'll be exporting. Set var and take var. Just follow this process. Okay, so in my layouts, we move straight to the layouts we're done with here, so you can save this file. So in our layouts, we're going to wrap our layouts within a sidebar provider. Okay, so everything within the body, I will actually put it around sidebar provider. So if I'm typing it because I've already exported it, I'm going to see that. So sidebar provider is going to wrap everything within my body. Okay. All right. So, yeah, sorry, I think I moved more step below. So I've actually imported it here. You can see it's importing it from providers. So back to my navigation bar. Okay, my navigation bar has to be a client application because I will actually implement some things here. So I'll just say use clients. Okay, that doesn't change anything for now. If we go back to our app, we can see that everything is still fine the way it is. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to import sidebar context. So sidebar context is will actually be very, very important this thing for me that I'll be using here. Okay. So, but for me to do that, I can actually declare a hook using use context. So I can say const. The name of what I want to bring in is var. So remember var. Okay. So is equal to use context. So I'm going to import use context from React, and my use context is going to take sidebar context. So which sidebar context, meaning that I'm actually importing it. So instead of this 0 here, I can actually give it var. Okay, so because it just, I'm going to just put in curly braces and I'll simply put var here. So with me doing this now, it means that my cat is reading 0 here. Just to verify that this context is actually being used globally, if I move out, if I go and change, if I go back to my providers, okay, and I change this thing to 10, you will actually notice that that value will change to 10. Okay, something is just not working now. Something is just the browser was just taking some time to boot. So you see that I changed it there to 10. And let's try to change it. Maybe I change it to 100. You will see that that value there will definitely change to 100. So we still want it to be 0. So I just change it back to 0 here and it will change to 0. Okay. So one thing you need to know here is that this 0 appears across all the components. So whether I'm on about component, even though this component don't exist, but it's not going to change anything. And here, back to the home, it is actually going to stay B0. So we are using it global. So with this, we have done the first part of our context API that is trying to make it to be 0. So the next part is to use our set var to update this value. This set var here is actually meant to update the value of the hook. Okay, so I will call the set var and I will use it to update the value of the hook. You can pretty much think of what am I actually supposed to do here at this point, right? So I'm going to go to cards because it's in cards that I have this here. Okay. So, but not definitely in cards because this cards has a component called card. So in this component called cards, of course, I'm going to make it to be a hook, and I'm going to use it to update that component there. So just like what we did here, okay, by importing context, now I have to import context again. So I can pretty much copy what I have here, okay, and just use it there. But I'm going to import two things in this case now. Okay, so we're going to import two things, not just var. We're going to also import set var. Okay, so we're importing var and we're also importing set var. Okay, because this is meant to increase the value of var with whatever that we have there as value, right? So yeah, so that is the work we're going to do here. So because of this, remember I'm going to also import this. So I can just trying to do that will help me to import it. Just try to type in it again, context, I'll see there it's inside. So I've imported context and I've imported useContext here. So if I try to do anything now, I should be able to see error being thrown up on this page because I'm using a client application without saying use client. So that is why you're seeing that error. And I can simply say use client. Okay. So this is a common thing you face, and of course my work will return back. Okay, so I'm going to write a function that will actually manage our set var. Okay, we use the set var to set the value. So you can say function add value, add value, add value to cards, add value to cards. So function add value to cards. I try to make sure that I give it a name that is what it's doing actually. Okay, so setvar, what is setvar going to actually do? So I will use the setvar to change to increase the number, the value on the var. Okay, but before I get to this setvar actually, I'm going to declare a hook that I will use to change to convert this to the input, the value coming from the input from string to number data type. So I'm going to create a group called input var, we call it input var, and set input var. Okay. I do go. How come? Don't prepare for your people. Okay, so this is reports use states. Okay, so why am I actually doing this? I need to convert the value coming from there to this. So because the initial value is going to be 1, so I will still assign it to be 1. Okay. So what we set input var do, so let's create a function for that before we come here. Function change var type, we'll call it function change var type, okay, which we're actually going to take E. It's going to take E and then set input var will actually be, I will convert it to a string. There's so many ways we can do the conversion, but you can just use number method to change a.target.value, a.target.value to change it to number. Okay, so this thing now, that means my default value will actually be input var here and no longer this input var here, and unchanged. I will just call the unchanged function here unchanged, and unchanged function will listen to set input var. So I'm going to use back to this set var. So the set var, what the set var will be doing for me now is going to look at the previous value that I have here. It's going to increase that previous value by input var. Okay, so and then that is what it will be doing. All right, so this button now will now listen to unclick for that event. Unclick functions. The name of the function is add var to cart. Add var to cart, and definitely this is enough to do that for us. So we are harvesting the value here, and then we are setting it up by what we have there. Change input var. I've not actually used this function, change var type. Okay, so this change var type, it will be the input that will be listening to it. Okay, it will be the input that will be listening to it, or it's not this guy. So what this one will be listening to is change var type. Okay, it will be listening to change var type. Right, so you can see that it's active now. Change var type. So this changes the var type to a number. There's so many ways you can change the var type to a number. I can either multiply it by 1 or divide it by 1 or subtract 0 from it or raise it to the power of 1 or use pass floats or pass integer to do that. Okay. So that does this for me. So if I come here now and click, you can see it has increased this value by 1. Okay, if I increase this by 2 or 3, so I have 3 here now. If I click here, here will now be 4. So it's looking at what is the last thing that I've done, and it will be able to increase that for me. So you can see that it's increasing. It has added it to be 7. You can say I have 6, I have 3 here, I have 3 here, I have 1 here. I've not added this one. If I add 1 here, it will now be 8. Okay. So and that is it. This is just a simple way of managing this. And if I go to home, okay, I'm actually at home. If I go to contacts, and this will always be 8. Okay, so my page actually refreshed and everything goes right. Okay, so let me add again. It's just that the page refreshed because we're not storing it for now, but we actually look at how to store it. So if I move here and you see everything goes out again, and if I move to this place, the page is refreshing. That is why you can actually see that it's changing because the page is refreshing. So once the page refreshes, it goes. Okay, it doesn't stay there anymore. But let's try to create a page for that so that our page doesn't refresh. Okay, let's try to create that component. Let's assume that we have this component here called contacts. Okay, contacts. Okay, and then inside contacts we have page dot JSX. Okay, so I have RFC contact. So and I have this as contact page. Contact page. Okay. So when I go to contact page, you can see that there is no more refresh there because the page actually exists. So if I add some things here and I move to contact page, you can see that the value still stays there because it doesn't refresh. Okay, but if I move to something like about, which causes the page to refresh, everything goes. All right, and this is because there is no place we are storing the data. Okay, so we also look at local storage. After we're done, we can look at local storage. So with local storage, you can actually store this on a browser so that even if it refreshes, our data will actually be there. But for now, the data doesn't change when I route from one company. As far as there is no refresh, if I move to contact because contact pages, it does not change. You see that there. Okay. So that is it. So meet you in the next video. We're going to talk about more ways that how do we manipulate this card to see the contents in the cards, delete something from cards and all that. See you in the next class.